Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today we have Julie Hoang, who is a fitness entrepreneur owning 4 gyms in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, revolutionizing the way people approach exercise in their day-to-day lives. She's overcome obstacles that would have stopped most people in their tracks. So let's learn a little bit more about exercise, fitness, and overcoming obstacles with Julie. So Julie, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you are here. So how did you embark on this journey of entrepreneurism and overcoming obstacles? It wasn't like you just woke up one day and said, "Oh, this is a bunch of crap. I got to change this."
I think entrepreneurship for me comes from overcoming tons of obstacles as all through my life as a young adult, and that turned into I love to solve problems. I had been working out and fitness all my life. I had my own issues with food and weight management, and I learned more about that and I love coaching and teaching. So I kind of combined the coaching, the teaching, my overcoming my own personal obstacles to helping other people. And it organically spawned from there.
So now let's just dive in deeper. So you had these personal obstacles that took place. What were some of these obstacles that were there that might have stopped someone else from doing what you've done?
Well, first of all, it's so hard to believe in yourself, especially if you come from, Section 8 housing and, you didn't have a lot of people to look up to, or you didn't know what success was. It was just the basics at that point. And growing up, I guess stereotypes too. I'm Vietnamese American. My mom always told me to, grow up and marry a doctor or lawyer, be a doctor or lawyer, and, not start off being a personal trainer, for the rest of your life, or being into fitness is not a job, right? So that's kind of where it overcoming obstacles of what my parents thought I should do and what I thought I should do and what I was raised to think I should do, and having and just believing in yourself. But as soon as when I started training part-time in college, I just did it. I was helping. Somebody had asked me to help them because they knew I was on a volleyball scholarship, and they knew that I loved playing sports. And she was in my freshman class, and she was like, "Hey, teach me how to work out, and I will, help you with your the notes in the class or something like that, or help tutor me in a certain class." And I was at her apartment complex in that gym, and I was teaching her how to exercise, and I felt like time really passed really quickly, and it was so easy, and I was really in my zone, and I really loved helping people, and it actually made a change. And then she told me how I helped her, and it kind of started from there. And then overcoming more obstacles is like maintaining my own weight. Apparently my mom thinks I'm supposed to be this tiny, skinny Asian girl. And I always was holding like 20 pounds of muscle on me. And I lifted weights, and she didn't like that I lifted weights because she thought I'd get big and bulky. But I felt really good about it. I felt really strong and confident. I was not like overweight, but I think in her eyes, I was. So, that, and just having to learn and read a lot on my own about business and paving this kind of new way for what my family expected of me. So the obstacles were mainly, what my family expected from me, and then what I thought I was supposed to do. And once I just kind of like embraced what I really felt in my heart, and what made me go is the biggest obstacle for me to overcome. And I kind of went into my my own, right? So as soon as I felt like, you know what, God put me on this earth to do, I felt like, hey, this put me on this earth to do what I'm doing right now. So I just got to go with it. And then who knows what doors will open. I have no idea. All I knew was at that time when I was 19 or 20, I was like, okay, I want to be a personal trainer. And I did. And then who'd have thought by 25 I'd have my own gym? Like I just thought I was going to be a personal trainer. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Or even help like hundreds and, at this point, thousands of people just change their lives, right? No idea. Just was every moment I just try to live with what I feel gives me energy and passion, and I feel fulfilled, and I just go with that, and then doors open like constantly for me. That's what I feel
And
like.
that's it's so important that doors are opening, because it would be really tough to go through life if you walk up to a door, it's closed, and you keep doing that. And I think that's where so many people get stuck, is they don't know how to open the doors.
Yeah, I think for me, what's really important in this whole process is to have some creative time and have some good techniques to relax and decompress and leave like the stresses, the day-to-day stresses behind, so that you can be creative and be resourceful and seeing and opening the doors.
Right. And you have to do that. So, in terms of opening doors, when going back to, you mentioned that you grew up in Section 8 housing, why is it that so many people who grow up in that environment don't have that drive like you do, where they just feel that this is it, there's nothing else, I'm just going to exist?
I think it's the mindset. And I started being around people, I think around probably the age of, I get, well, I think the most impactful people, or the turning point, was when I started playing sports. And everybody has their thing, right? So I started playing sports, and I had a great coach that literally would always just expect more from me, and it didn't put up with mediocre, or didn't put up with me not trying, and just saw that I could do more, and saw that I was trying to get out of things, and would call me out. And I mean, my mom did that, but she did that with a lot of other things aside from, I guess, but aside from, I mean, just your typical being a good kid, or respecting elders, or helping out around the house. My mom did that, expected those things. But as far as believing in myself, and being able to feel like I can do this, and my environment doesn't make me, and my past doesn't equal my future, is basically coaches throughout my life that really just believed in me, and expected more from me than I expected from myself. And that was at every point. I think you meet people for a reason. And every time I felt like, man, I'm not gonna get my dream of getting a full scholarship, or I'm not gonna, make the team, or I'm not gonna start, or I'm not. And it was always a coach like, you just got to work hard. And if you practice this way, and if you listen to me, do this, if you move your footwork like this, if you do this, then you'll get to your goal. And so it's kind of how I apply everything in life.
And that is really powerful of how you leverage sports, because when you look at the population in general, that's something that's in common, that you see people who might have come from very bad circumstances, but because they had that coach who ultimately became one of their first positive mentors,
Yeah.
they're able to overcome those obstacles. Because you think about, if in a life where someone might not have a positive role model at all.
Yeah, or your
That
parents
one,
are just working really hard, that's
right,
positive, but they're just always working, and they're never home. And and they're positive in the way that they give you the work ethic. But
right,
yeah, they're not there when you're, feeling down about yourself in the day, and they don't notice if you're, not feeling confident, or you can't, or you're struggling with something, because they're struggling with their own, issues of trying to get food on the table, and keep you in a safe place.
right, exactly. And that's so critical, because there's, I think if you look at society as a whole right now, that is one of the biggest problems. You have people that, it's a dual income family. The parents are working hard, just like what you said, to make sure there's a roof over their head, there's food on the table, but they're not able to truly be present for their children. And then you wonder, like, well, how come there's all these issues? Well, they're kind of, in some ways, an absentee parent. It's not because they want to be, it's because they have no
It's survival
choice.
mode. Yeah.
Right. It's,
I mean, they're just in survival mode, and I have full respect for my parents and what they did and what they had to do. But, I was glad that there are other people aside from your parents that, I guess, from my experience growing up, that if they just believed in me, I felt like I could do it for some reason, you know? And then the
right.
playing the sports was huge in terms of a metaphor for life, because I was a setter. I played volleyball, and I was a setter, or any sport, right? You have one play, you mess up, you go to the next play. Like, you don't have time to think about what you messed up last, because if you're the point guard, the ball's coming to you. If you're a setter, you get the second ball every time. So you don't have time to dwell on your mistakes. You just got to move forward. And your job is to get the team morale up every play. And they can't think about the past. I mean, that's just
Right.
how entrepreneurship is, I think. You literally put out fires. You make sure the team's morale's good, and you don't think about the past. You just move forward.
Right. That's a great metaphor, because you think about what happens so often when people are embarking on this entrepreneurial journey. They're constantly looking at the rearview mirror, thinking, well, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong with this? And so on. Instead of, what is it you need to do right now? The ball is back in your hands.
Right.
You need to make
Now,
a
what's the
choice
next
right then and
play?
there.
Right. We got to win. We got to figure out a way to win. We got to figure out a way to win. What's the next play? Right?
Right. Because you also look at it from another perspective, that ultimately it comes down to you always go and take the shot, because you're going to miss some and you're going to make
Oh,
some.
yeah. Oh, my gosh. I'm all about taking action. I mean, even though I fail most of the time or have to be flexible and make a change in my direction, I always take action, because it's the momentum you need, and I really try to be resourceful. Like, I feel like it's ultimately down to me, so I need to be creative and find a way no matter what. Like, I don't take no or not possible for an answer. I always know that there's a way, and there's 3 or 4 options. So my stepdad helped me do that. Like, growing up, I had a stepdad. He's amazing, and we still do. So we call him our dad, basically. Whenever there's decisions being made, he would always be like, "All right." I go, "Okay, Dad, what do you think I should do?" And he's like, "Okay, well, you can do." He'd hold his hand up, and he'd have like 5 options, or 3 to 5 options. If you did this, what do you think would happen? And then he'd make me like, go down that route. Like, okay, if you did this, if you chose this, what do you think this would happen? If you chose this, how would, And so now when I make decisions, I literally can think of, I feel like I have multiple decisions. I never feel like I'm stuck with doing one thing, right? I feel like
Right.
I have at least 3 options, and then all I do is go through each 3 options, and then with my result in mind, or my goal in mind, I go down the 3 options and figure out, how they will play out as best as possible. And that's kind of how I make decisions.
And that's a great way to do it, because you always have choices in front of you, so you can evaluate what's going to be the ideal solution. Because so many times what people are looking for is say the fast solution, the
Easy.
most profitable, instead of what is the ideal one. Because if you think about it, if you're, I use like using an example, if your goal is to grow your business, there's going to be some things which can be really short term, which is great for putting money in your pocket right now, but it has no longevity to it. And then there's some things which will work great in the long run, but it's going to take you I wouldn't say forever, but a long time to get all the
Right.
pieces in place.
Well, I think
So
of
you
it
have to
as
look in the
investments.
middle.
Yeah,
Right.
I think investments. I think you got short-term gains, right? You got to look at what you're doing short-term, and you got to execute on some of those items, and then you have long-term game plan. So you're doing things, to try to for the long game too. So it's like diversifying your, portfolio. So you're going to have to use some of your time and effort into executing things that are going to have short-term, gains, because you do need the short-term gain. And then you're going to have plans that you set down that are going to yield a year from now, 2 years from now,
Right.
5 years from now, or yield when figure out what you're going to exit eventually. So you got to, lay down the groundwork. Like the way I do my books and all my businesses is I run it like as if it was going to be able to be sold in 2 weeks. So it didn't make sense in the beginning when you're like this little, you're just one person. But that was my long term, like, structural foundation. It was like, I got to keep everything clean, my books clean, everything's good, solid, and organized, because, at the end of the day, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever, I will not dig myself a bigger hole, so that is the long-term benefit. That's the long-term benefit if I go ahead and set up my books as if we were going to sell, 2 weeks from now. Right.
Right. And that in itself is valuable because you look at how many business owners, they're not thinking of the long game. It's only, well,
Oh yeah. It's fires every day.
it's fires instead of, well, you have fires that's not going to change. Just accept it as a fact.
Right. Exactly.
And you have to still look at what do you need to
Exactly.
do to put those out as fast as possible and keep building upon it. So, because you can't control
Exactly.
everything.
No, you can't. And everybody says, "Oh, I live paycheck to paycheck. I can't save. I can't save." It's like, okay. I mean, if you're, I guess, what Tony Robbins says, you live in scarcity. That's where you're going to be, right? Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter if you make $100 or $1,000. So you have to start beyond it. If you got $100 and you got to save five, then that's what you do.
Right. And everything comes down to the mindset there. But this is
Yep,
where I
it's all
think
mindset.
so many people can make an adjustment. Instead of focusing on saving, it's focusing on how can you create more.
Yeah, invest. Yeah, it's
Right.
focusing on. Yes, exactly. That is a little. Yes, exactly. I mean, same thing with when you have when you are running your own business, you got to look, okay, you can't probably keep this pace up forever, and the role has to evolve. And so you have to look at, how do you want your lifestyle to be, and how do you want your role to evolve a year from now,
Right.
3 years from now, 6 years from now. Where do you see yourself as the owner of the business? And once you see that, I think the path kind of opens up in front of you of what to do next.
Right. That is so critical because what happens when you think about just, the average person out there, let's think about the people that are working two jobs or trying to keep a roof over their head. And if you think of the education system, most people are just taught you have to save and save for your future and so forth, but you can only save so much because you think about it. If you look at yourself, you have a family, with amazing kids and dogs and so on, that for you to have a certain lifestyle, the only way that you can do more is you have to create more because where
Oh
people
yeah.
go wrong is they look at it, they have those salaries, it's a set amount, and then they're saving, but then you can only save so much before you realize your quality of life begins to diminish. Like, well, if we take a trip here, then we can't do
Oh
this.
yeah. You have to learn how to make your money work for you.
Right,
I think that's it. And then you have to diversify what you're doing. So I don't believe, in big working for corporate, or, I mean, to certain people, okay, that's fine. You can work for corporate, but you better have a side gig, right? Like, you better be doing something on the side that's going to create your, like, the business, the other, to basically diversify you. Because if you're working for a corporation, you have one boss to please, and maybe they're doing budget cuts, or maybe they're doing, the boss that you currently have doesn't like you, or maybe the company's going a different direction. Well, that one company you have to please, if they just can wake up the next morning and be like, I don't really, I don't really feel, or my budget's being cut, no matter how good you are, no matter what you do for the company, you could lose your job, right? So for
right,
me as an entrepreneur, I have at least 300 clients, and if one doesn't like me, then for some reason, or they have budget cuts and they have to scale back on the business, on my product or my service, I have 299 more bosses, in a way, and so
right.
I have, as an entrepreneur, I feel like I have more job security than people thinking they're going to corporate America having job security.
Right, and that's the key thing there is you can always go and get more clients if you want to have a
Yeah, and
great
not
business,
all of
add
them are
another
going to walk
client.
out the door, you know?
Right, and
Yeah,
that's
I
one
think
of those
this whole,
differences.
yeah, I mean, I think we were taught to be like, oh, go work for a company, be safe and whatever. And it's just like, no, if you work for yourself and you have 10 clients, the likelihood of those 10 clients saying, hey, we're going to drop you, is very rare. And you can turn it on, you can get more clients if you want to, right?
Right,
But
and
with
that
corporate,
is
what do you
vital.
do? You can work
Right,
harder, you get the same paycheck, right?
right. exactly. You think about how many people they they're on a salary, and they're working overtime, but they're not making any more money.
Yeah. I
And then
mean,
what?
and they're not they're not really
Right,
investing in themselves. Like at the end of the day, they don't have anything. They walk away with nothing, they don't walk away with anything.
right, exactly. So it's the reason why entrepreneurship is very powerful, and it's getting there because people
Oh
just
yeah.
need to know that you can create what you want. Like, let's say that
And even
if
if
you
it's a side gig, like it doesn't have
right,
to be your, main gig, but I do believe if you have a full-time job in corporate, that's fine to have and you're that person, but I do think that you should probably have something on the side that's a little entrepreneurial to keep,
right.
you know, to
Well,
to just for safety, I believe.
right. I'm not thinking of even just about the safety aspect. I think of it in terms of it gives you choices.
Oh yeah, and not to mention it grows you as a person.
Right. Because if you think
It's
about it,
automatic personal growth right there.
right. Because then it goes down to, let's say that you want to take a vacation every single year. Instead of it being, well, we have to cut back on the other stuff we're doing.
Right.
Well, now you don't need to do that. It's like, oh, okay, well, if we're going to go to Disneyland, let's say that you want to have tons of fun and so forth, and it was going to be $10,000 for the trip. Well, then you know that over the course of an
Oh
entire
yeah, you're gonna
year,
have to, yeah,
yeah,
save, save, save.
yeah, exactly. You're not having
When all I
to.
have to do is get maybe like a couple more accounts, right?
Right, exactly. It's like you don't have to do a ton of stuff there. Like, well, if you broke it
Yeah.
down, like, well, then at the end of the day, that's about let's just say $850 more a month that you need to set aside in terms of with an entrepreneur business. And there's so many ways you can do that, but then your quality of life doesn't suffer, and then you go and can take that amazing trip.
Exactly. Yeah. I
So
mean, I agree.
it's
Or
aligned.
you, yeah, I mean, or you have a current business you're in, and then you have a side business that you make money from, but then it can help fund other investments that you have, you know?
Right. And that in itself is critical, is looking at how can you have a business on the side of your regular business. So this way it gives you that ability. So then you have more choices. Let's say that someone wants to start in real estate. Well, instead of them focusing on that main business, well, why not create something else with the sole purpose of investing in real estate with it?
Totally. Yeah. No, I obviously have four gyms, and then my husband, just started doing real estate and that, and then we invested in a software, an app. So it's an Instagram technology, and then now we have a product invention. Like I invented this product, it's getting patent right now. So it literally my core business of the gyms, uh, fund the other creativity that I have.
Right. And that is incredible because you're leveraging it so that you can take that revenue and turn it into seed money to begin creating other
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
So,
To experiment,
right.
and to
Exactly.
do what you believe in that, gives you fire, juice, or whatever. But it's not, I mean, it sounds so easy, but yeah, you got to understand that you are going to have to discipline and sacrifice for the time being. I think people
Right.
forget that, like how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, but it's worth it. Just like, I guess kids, it's the best way to explain it. It's very,
Right.
very hard, but it's worth it. And so we have to discipline ourselves to, we can't just spend like frivolously because we're actually interested in a couple other, in business opportunities that we would rather spend our money on at that time than to, go on. Maybe we, instead of, our multiple trips a year, maybe we do one big trip a year, you know?
Right. And that's something so critical that you mentioned. It's you have to be willing to put in the sacrifices because so many people, when they think of entrepreneurship, like, oh my God, you just have this instant success. Well, no, it's a growth process. You don't
Yeah.
wake up one morning that you just decide, I'm going to business, and suddenly you have 300 clients.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
no, there's this process. Like everyone starts with, guess what, one,
Yep. And
and
then
they
and
go
then
from there.
yeah, and then there's months where you lose more than you gain, you know?
Right.
And then there's more and hopefully when it grows, it's actually more months that you gain more than you lose. But yeah, it's definitely a heart-wrenching roller coaster.
Right, but if you look at the most successful companies out there, they all had those types of journeys. You think of where, for example, the like Southwest Airlines and the struggles they had in the early days of like how in the world they're going to be able to make payroll and
Yeah,
but they
but I
still
think that's how, you break through, right?
right,
You're going to have up and downs. You're going to have ups and downs if you work for a corporation, you know?
right,
But I'd rather have ups and downs, that benefit me fully, right?
right.
So but the frustrations, I think are just, I look at it as the beginning or the right before the breakthrough, you know?
Right, and that is so key because far too often people get frustrated and say, "Oh, that's it. Screw this. I'm done," and not
Yeah.
realizing they're 2 feet away from the success
Yep.
they've been looking for.
Yep. And if they overcame it, it'll make them stronger and smarter.
Right, and that's the thing. The struggle makes you stronger because if you just dove in and just had nothing but successes, you'll never really know the mentality of what does it take
It'd
to
be
succeed
boring.
when it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be boring. It would be, and which is sad. We wish that if we had all, success, that we would actually really enjoy it and be fulfilled by it. But I think fulfillment comes from actually overcoming. So,
right, exactly, and it makes you approachable because you think about the most successful people out there. They all have some type of journey that's like that's incredible. Versus, I just showed up one day, I smiled, the money came
yeah.
in.
And trust me, I've been training, 14, or I guess no, it's probably 17 years now. And I'm telling you, some of the richest people in the United States, and then just your regular working, executives. And it does not money is there's a lot of messed up people out there, and then there's a lot of, it's not about money. Money's not going to make you happy. It's about how you live your life, and how your perspective of life is what makes you happy.
Right, and that's the thing I think is the ultimate goal of entrepreneurship. It's how you're able to live life
Yep.
because you think about it.
On your terms.
Right. You're able to do it on your terms. So if you're working, let's say you decide you're going to work 18 hours in the day, it's because you love what you're doing, not versus I have got to get this crap done. They're
Yeah.
paying me. It's like, well, no, you're doing it because this is enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard, but it is definitely enjoyable. I mean, it's just because it's rewarding. Um, it is, at the end of the day, all that you put in is yields short-term gain for you, like if you make money on account, but then but long-term gain, because that makes your company more valuable.
Right, exactly. And that is the key to it. It's the putting in the time that makes the difference. But then it goes back down to how you can decide to live your life. Think about one of the common things people have trouble with, and that's, let's say, taking vacation time. Or if they only had 2 weeks of vacation time in a year, well, then you have to carefully think about every day you're taking off.
Oh, I know. I cannot stand that. Okay, so my
Yeah.
husband used to work in corporate America for like a lot of years, and
Hmm.
I've been an entrepreneur for at least 10 years. And I want to go on a vacation, like just because I want to go whenever. He's like, "Oh, I can't, because we're going to have to take Christmas off to go visit my mom, and then we're going to have to take, Thanksgiving to visit blah blah blah, and then I'll just leave me like 1 week left because I only have 3 weeks." And I'm just like, "What?" You know?
Right.
Or I'm like, "Hey, I want to go to Europe, and let's go for, 3 weeks." And he's just like, "Well, I can't leave 3 weeks in a row. I mean, I've got to be back for this and this, and I just started, or I just can't leave for that long." And
Right.
I hated that. And that's why recently, both of us decided, okay, the best thing for you to do is go into real estate, because going for your business for yourself. And to him, real estate was in his mind, security. And it's like it's a business that's been around for a long time. You're not reinventing the wheel so much.
Right.
And so to him, it was like it was pretty stable, so he could take the risk, because he's not an entrepreneurial type of guy, but has a spirit in him that we just need to like develop more, or he needs to develop more.
Right.
And but he's going into an industry where he feels it's about numbers, and he can have some sort of a little bit of predictability, where I'm trying to pave a way in the industry, which is very different. So
Right.
yeah, so that way we booked our first month vacation. We're going to be gone for like 4 weeks in August, and and that's been my dream. So being an entrepreneur is like, for my life on my terms, is that I want to be able to go somewhere for 6 to 8 weeks and be able to work from remotely, and be with my family, and be wherever I want to be, whenever I want to be. I want freedom.
Right, exactly. And that is the most important thing, because you think about how people can get focused on the wrong things. Where
Yeah,
I
like
have
money.
right where money is a tool that this is where my philosophy differs from a lot of people. Your objective is to have the money you need to live the lifestyle that you want, because you
Yes.
don't want it to become a prisoner that you're so focused on it, but then you look at your quality of life. The only thing you're doing is you're waking up, you're working, you're coming back home, and then you're going to sleep and
Right.
repeating the cycle 5, 6, 7 days a week. Well, what's the point?
Right.
Versus,
Or yeah, or versus, like, if you're an entrepreneur, maybe you like the next in the next week, I'll work, I know some things are coming up that I'll just have to work like crazy for like 4 to 6 weeks, right? But I
right,
know, like, it's not going to be like that forever, and I know I'm just planning the foundation, on the next move I'm doing. But it just takes me to go in there and dig in the trenches and like lay the foundation, and get people in place to work there and train them, and just get everything in the right order, and then I'll be out of there in 6 weeks.
right. Exactly. You know that there's a start and end date to that rush period, because you can see the benefit. So it might be that you're working really hard for 6 weeks because you're launching a product
Yeah.
or whatever it is, but then you know that once it's out there, within 2, 3 weeks afterwards, you're going on a vacation where, like, you're telling your team, you've got it, send me a text
Yeah.
message if it's an emergency,
Yeah.
and you're
Or like
gone.
check in, 1 or 2 hours a day. Um, you know, get your, like, if I can get so much work done if I just can be in a creative place and not feel tied down, you know?
Right. Exactly, because we live in this world where you're no longer tied down to the traditional ways of thinking. Because if you look at the educational system, it's really designed for people to be trained to fill a position, not to be a thought leader.
Yeah. I mean, it's built on something, old way of thinking. And it's
Right.
different now. I mean, we have the internet. So things are very, very different than the industrial age.
Right. And that's the beautiful thing when you look at it, the internet. I like to call it, it's the great equalizer. That now everybody has access to the same type of information. It's no longer, oh, well, you don't live in the good part of town, so you can't
Yeah.
go to whatever school.
Or you're not rich and you don't have an encyclopedia, right?
Right, exactly. Like if someone wants to learn, it doesn't matter what topic it is. There's a lot of universities that allow you to audit a course for free.
Totally.
So if you're saying, well, I don't have the best education. Well, look up what schools are out there and just
Exactly.
take those classes. Okay, you're not getting the class credit for it, but you're learning.
Exactly.
So you might be going to the school that's like, oh my gosh, this is horrible education, but then you take it upon yourself to learn more. Well, then you become the A student. People are like, how did you do it? The teachers are not that great here, because you sought out a solution to the problem you're having.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, being a personal trainer, I feel like I am like a psychologist and a therapist, but I'm learning hands-on, right? And then while I was dealing with clients' issues of why they can't get from A to B when they're really smart people, smart educated people that can't, maybe make the right food decisions or exercise consistently, then I just go read about, why people, how to execute or how to make things happen, or I just, figure out. I just go read. Yeah, I spent a lot of Friday nights when I was in my early 20s sitting in the aisles of Barnes and Noble and reading in the self-help section, you know?
Right. Oh, yes. Reading is one of the most powerful things that anybody can do. Yet, when you look at the population as a whole, it's something that people are not doing as much as they should be.
I know. Or, I mean, nowadays you can do Audible, right? You can read
Right.
you can hear the books. I mean, YouTube, you can learn so much content on YouTube University pretty much.
Right.
And I mean, I took my daughter to half price books so we could just sit in the aisles and read. She got her books and I got my books.
Right. Exactly. There's so many resources out there. Like, one of my favorite things to do is I love listening to podcasts. Imagine that. And
Yeah.
it's to me it's simple. Like, if I'm going to be driving across town for a meeting, well, instead of listening to the radio
Radio.
or honestly making phone calls and then I'm not as paying attention as much, I'll listen to a podcast that's on an informative topic. Like, oh, well,
Yeah,
that's
I love that. I
fascinating.
do that too. Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's so much information out there. There's not any reason, to not
Right.
be learning and improving and getting, honestly, even to, if you're curious about something and you don't know if you want to get into that field or try that, you probably could find something on YouTube or on a podcast to have somebody tell you their experience.
Right, exactly. That is the key to it. You can discover everything you need to know just by being proactive instead of just waiting for it to fall into my lap. Like, well, I've been sitting here waiting for a sign. Well, yeah, their sign was get off your butt. So,
I know, that's the thing. Every I mean, everybody I've ever met through training, and I met very successful people I look up to, and a lot of them were my mentors, and they didn't even know it. They were paying me to train them and get them to a goal with their health and fitness, but I was getting so much more out of it at just being around people or finding an occupation that you can be around people that are better than you, or that you can learn from, and pick up and asking great questions. And being curious, because people love talking about themselves, and I love learning. So when I was training, I would just always ask questions about, how they grew up or what challenges they went through, or what are they investing in now, or how did they know they wanted to be a lawyer? How did they know when they wanted to be a trial lawyer? How did they know they wanted to open their own business? Like, just while I was training them, and at the same time, I brought value to them by teaching them where to eat, what to eat, how much of it to eat, if they're doing the exercise correcting their form, how many should they do, how many they have left, and, getting them on track and focusing on themselves and taking care of themselves and making them accountable. And they really valued that. And so I gave them
right,
that, and they gave me other information,
right,
and paid me.
right. What a better way to learn? Like, I'm getting paid to improve myself.
Oh
I
my
love
gosh, yeah,
this.
that's how I felt personal training was. Like, that's just exactly, because you meet so many different peoples in so many walks of life that, and then you have such a connection. You have that hour to spend with them, and you're the mood and of the session is always great because you're physically moving, and
Right.
you can't be in a better state, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. It makes complete sense on that. And of course, as you've built this business here, you've developed yourself. What's been some of those keys to success to growing four gyms where, when you look at the Dallas Fort Worth area, there's a lot of
Gym on every
competition.
corner. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like there's a
There's
gym, a bank, and a
yeah.
church on every
Yep.
corner.
Every single corner. I think Dallas is second to New York on the most gyms or fitness related businesses per square capita.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. The key is there's lots of keys. I don't know if there's, one key, but for me, it's always learning and growing, and learning about people and how they think, because it helps with management. When you're hiring people and when you're leading them, it helps with the client, the customer experience, how the customer buys, what the customer, and asking great questions. So, recently we just hit our 10-year, kind of in business, and I was thinking about, what does I've had clients for 10 years now. A lot of my clients have been here for 10 years. Now what are the clients, 10 years older needing through our gyms, right? Like, what kind of things are they needing now? And so asking questions like, how can I be innovative for my current clientele? And it brought us to answers like, okay, our clients are 10 years older, which means they might be 10 years like they're tighter, maybe we need to add some sort of wellness session or physical therapy type session, or a session that's dedicated to stretching instead of just weight training, or weight training and cardio. Maybe we need to develop a session towards posture because those are the new problems they're dealing with, right? So I think being innovative, and then being innovative in your marketing is going to help you continue to stay in the game longer, because there's 100 trainers and 99 of them want their own gym, and maybe one of them get it, right? And then maybe one of them get it for 4 or 5 years and then they close down. I mean,
Right.
I think the key is continuing to learn that it's not about training so much, but it's about business too. Like learning business, learning how to manage your cash flow, learning, how to grow your business by just a couple different levers, learning all the levers you have, not just being a one-trick pony, learning how to get clients by multiple strategies versus just one, which is just maybe a lot of people use referrals, So there's I think, there's so many things that you need to do to stay in the game and stay in it longer, because the longer you're in it, the more likely you are to, it gets harder.
Right.
It gets easier, but it gets harder, right?
Right. Exactly. So now, one of the things that I think a lot of businesses struggle with, especially when they're a brick and mortar business,
Yeah.
is getting clients. What are some of your favorite ways to get clients?
Favorite ways right now is what's relevant is social media influencers. So right now, one of our bigger funnel of clients is social media influencers, like Instagram influencers that are local. So local social media influencers right now. And then of course we always do, your AdWords and your local SEO. We have a website that we constantly check to make sure the client journey through that website is very easy, and we're attracting the clients that we want to attract, and we're speaking to a specific demographic that values what we want to present, or the service that we provide, because there's so many gyms, there's so many personal trainers. You have your big box gyms, and you have your little hole in the wall gyms, and you have your boot class clamps and outside, and you have your, independent trainers, you have all this stuff. So we stay in this niche market, and we market towards those people, and everything we do is around that, so that's how, right now I love social media, getting influencers and establishing a relationship, not just posting, with a blogger that reviews your service or product one time, but literally getting a relationship with the blogger or the influencer that you're literally on their feed or on their social media, and they're posting about you like every week for like 5 months, 6 months.
Right.
So that way, because nowadays, people are so inundated with all this marketing, like that they don't even see you to get recognized. When I went to, a business seminar, is that at least 16 times to even be recognized, like to even look at your brand. So you need to have that relationship by consistently having somebody either post about your service over time.
Right. And that's where I think so many businesses, they miss out on, is what can they do to get in front of people? Because you can have the greatest ad system out there, which is it's great for generating clients, but what creates the exponential growth is when other people start talking about you.
Yeah. And then asking your own clients. The best people to ask on where they shop, or how they shop, or how do they buy, is asking your own clients. Like, I got the idea, like, I always thought, like, maybe Instagram was, not my type of client. Like, because my gyms in Dallas, that Concept Fit 180 does high-end personal training. And then I have a Plano location that is a different price point and a different business model, but it's still personal training. And I thought my high-end people weren't looking at Instagram. They were too busy working. Well, I was talking to some of my clients that were, top attorneys. They actually do look at Instagram. They may not comment on it. They may not, they're not like posting themselves, but they actually look at the feeds a lot.
Right.
And so that gave me the idea of like, I may not see them being active themselves, but they're actually in their free time, they're looking through Facebook and Instagram, and then they're scrolling through. They may not comment, they may not be active, but they are looking, and that's how they buy.
Right, exactly. And
Right.
it's a critical component where I think people miss out on, is that when you're looking at any social media channel, whether it's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram.
Yeah, I still don't get Twitter yet, but I know.
Yeah, that's a
I've
whole
been
different
trying to.
conversation.
I know.
But the vast majority of people out there fall into that lurker category where they just
Yes.
comment,
Yes.
like they don't do the engagement, but they look at everything and consume all of it.
Yep. And they read everything and that's how they buy.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Exactly.
so funny. It is. It's a lurker. That's exactly what you call it.
And that's why it's so critical to be consistent with your marketing efforts because those people, they're consuming it. They just don't tell you that they are until you're walking along
Uh-huh.
across the street like,
Unless
I
you
love
have
your
like an
post.
hour, yeah, like you have an hour training them and then you get into deeper conversation, right?
Hmm.
Or you have a connection with that client and you get to ask these, more personal questions of like, you know, or they say something in the conversation, you're like, wait, how did they know that? Because they would only know that if they were actually following us on Instagram, right? Or following us
Right.
on Facebook, even though they never comment or they never like the post.
Right. Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those little key things you have to yeah, my tongue twister of the day, consistently show up so you can be able to go up.
Yeah. And I don't feel like, we don't do everything. We don't do it well. I think that we do stick with a couple things. And even though I feel like, if I had more manpower or more time, or I would probably do a little, obviously a better job on engaging in other platforms. But right now we're just really, we're really focused on Instagram and Facebook, Instagram more than Facebook. So,
Right.
and
Well,
different strategies for different platforms.
right, exactly. And the key to that is that you have to master a traffic source.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
then you can look at expanding to others. Facebook and Instagram, that can take care of pretty much everything that you need.
That's true. And they're two different buyers, so you have two different
Right.
strategies where I used to just you're experimenting. So the point is just to get on and start doing it, right? Even
Right.
if it's bad in a way. I know that's probably bad advice, but I feel like you should just start doing it so you can start getting familiar and you be a user yourself so that you can understand how people buy. And so with
Right.
Facebook, we look at, okay, people buy, that's like more of a close knit group, like Facebook, like your friends. It's like where you share your family photos and, you're just a little bit more personal with Facebook. And then we try to use that as like referral base. So like we try to get our clients to check in because the closest thing to word of mouth is basically checking in. So we'll do that. But like with Instagram, it's more about, it's visually appealing. And so we play to that
Right.
way instead. We'll produce videos that do well visually, even though it's not great. It's like, when you're scrolling through Instagram, you like to see videos and pretty pictures or interesting pictures or pretty people or having people having fun and stuff like that. So, that might not be perfect, but that's what we kind of like try to strategize for our business.
Right. You have to figure out what's going to work best in that regards and then just stay in front of them consistently. Because you
Yeah, and
can
get
think
other
about
people to
it.
start talking about you. But
Right.
by not forcing them, but like we try to be innovative with things that we're doing. Like we'll run contests. We will introduce new products to the client, so that way they're always like people will go, "Oh, where'd you get those? Where'd you get that type of heart rate monitor?" They're like, "Oh, well, this is what's going on at my gym. This is what my trainer got me." And so it just keeps the buzz. We're not
Right.
great at it, but we do know that that's part of doing business because you're going to face, if you're year 1, year 2, year 5, I mean, you're still new, right? I mean, year 8, 9, 10 is when you're like, okay, these people, this is your part, being their personal trainer, you're a part of their life now. They don't really talk about you that much to other people. And they
Right.
already look so good because the first few years was their big change where people notice their change and they're asking, who do you go to? Who do you go to? Where do you work out? Well, in year 6 and 7, 8, 9, and 10, they still look really good. But
Right.
people around them don't notice because it's like, it's standard, and they've been going to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m. for the last 8 years. So they don't talk about it anymore. So our job as a business is to bring new ideas or be innovative in products or services and changing it up so that it creates a buzz for them to then talk about in their regular life.
Right. And that is so critical. You have to give people a reason to talk about your business. Otherwise, they fall into that normal routine. They're just going through it like anything else, like waking up in the morning. They get
Yeah,
up,
and it
they do
still
it.
may be great, but like, I have a great nanny, an amazing nanny. She's been our nanny for 4.5 years. But boy, I talked about her so much in the first 2 years, right? And then now she's been our nanny for 4.5 years. I don't really, go to work and tell people about how amazing my nanny is because even though she is great, it's the law of like, I guess, newness.
Right. It goes back down to that ad sensitivity. Think about Super Bowl
Yeah,
commercials.
exactly.
They're great. Everyone's talking about them for about 3
A week.
days.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, and that was yesterday.
Yeah, but you look at all the best companies. If you look
Right.
at all the best companies, they're always innovating and they're always like, I wonder why restaurants, I wonder, when you go into a restaurant, like let's say you go into like a Chick-fil-A or something and you always order the same thing, but most people probably order the same things, right?
Right.
Like they order the same thing every time, 90% of the time. But Chick-fil-A is always rolling out new items or doing a new campaign or doing, whatever. But those people that go in are always ordering pretty much the same thing. But what
Right.
the shopper feels like, the customer experience is that, oh, this is in the new. Like, oh, these people are always doing something. This is cool and hip, or, like they're always looking out or they're always introducing new things. They may not ever go for the new salad, but they're going to this place and they're shopping there, but they want to feel like, hey, this is I'm doing the right thing, right? Like this is hip. This is they're always thinking about the consumer. That's how I think that's how I feel about,
Right.
They may never utilize it, but they think it's really cool that the business is doing something for the client.
Right, exactly. It makes it so much more valuable. So as we begin wrapping things up here, Julie, what is one tip that you would recommend for entrepreneurs to do to begin creating success in their life and overcome obstacles?
Peer group, make a little mastermind group or talk with other people that are maybe in different industries and that are entrepreneurs and discussing your obstacles with them, and then they might be able to give you some advice from personal experience on how you can apply it to your own business.
Right. And that in itself is so powerful because when you begin changing your peer group, everything changes. If you think about that one famous quote from Jim Rohn about you're the average of the 5 people that are closest to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get so many ideas, and they're better than ideas that I've read it. I mean, they're ideas that you could probably read in a book or hear on a podcast or hear on a YouTube. But when you're talking to people that you meet on a regular basis that care about you and you care about them, and then the integrity of the person too, that when they give you an idea, you at first you feel like, oh, that's not going to work for me, but at least what it does is it gets your mind open to how you can maybe manipulate that idea to work for you,
Right. Exactly. It's all about opening yourself to the possibilities of what you can do.
Yeah, don't say no right away. Yeah, don't say no right away. Just think on it and and just ask yourself questions like, okay, well, if I were to do this in my industry, what would that look like? How would that work?
Right, exactly. That's the most critical thing. So I want to thank you for coming onto the Big Movement Podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom of overcoming obstacles and that entrepreneurial mindset, which is so critical to achieving success.
Thank you, Byron.
And how can people get a hold of you to learn more about what you're doing in your gyms here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Well, I have 2 concepts, so you can go to fit180.com, fit180.com, or LFT Personal Training, LFTpersonaltraining.com, and that's my Plano concept. I just want to bring, personal training to the masses and to help more people because it's changed. I've witnessed it change so many people's lives and hold so many people more accountable and have a better lifestyle.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on today.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.